Don't hold me back now, no looking down. I'm standing on the edge and I'm looking to the ground. I see the grey skies are coming all around. See, I start to lose my vision, but I'm holding on to sound. No fear, I'm still hearing. Wrong skin, but I'm healing. No fear, I'm still hearing. Wrong skin, but I'm healing. No fear, I'm still hearing. Wrong skin, but I'm healing. No fear, I'm still healing. Wrong skin, but I'm
chat right now. Looks to just be Meg at the moment. If you are in chat, please shout out, because I am curious who all has tuned in for the beginning of class. Meg in chat. Sent out an email to everyone, and hopefully we probably go over this if we get a whole bunch more people tuning in. But, so, welcome to my impromptu classroom. Currently also known as my basement. It's been a bit of work getting all this set up and organized, but if I'm being honest, this has been a plan in the making for a little while. Initially, the idea for this was not that I'll bring down the background music. There we go. How's that? I can turn myself up a bit too. Check 1 2 1 2. Actually, I will admit the background music, even in my headphones, is a bit loud. There we go. Okay. So yes, this has been an idea in the making for a while. In a perfect world, it wouldn't have been a pandemic that caused me to start streaming class. But, in theory, going forward, I was hoping to start doing tutorials and extra lessons, extra work, and more in-depth work into different audio-video editing techniques, and run them completely separately from class for anyone who wants to tune in. And this is kind of the trial run of that for now. Conveniently, all that was already kind of in place, so this was not the hardest thing to set up, but it was definitely work. As far as housekeeping goes, the big thing to remember is that this is going to take place every Wednesday, just the exact same way we would hold class. Every Wednesday at 5. We probably won't run to 8. No problem, Mick. Glad you could join us. So we'll run from 5 to whenever these lessons kind of finish up. I'll finish off with kind of a question period for anything you want to clarify, anything you want to know. That way I'm not leaving you all just hanging the moment I finish my work. Sorry, my monitor's over here, that's why I'm pointing this way. Beyond that, I do have certain rules. This is a classroom after all, and these rules apply to yourselves who are watching, my actually enrolled students, as well as anyone else who might tune in or out as we engage in class. So those rules are, first of all, don't be a jerk. Swearing, racism, all your standard jerk things aren't tolerated here, just as they wouldn't be in class. And what's nice about here is because I do offer you guys tutorials at a later date, I have no problem muting someone. Again, whether an enrolled student or a rando. Beyond that, don't spam chat. If you have a question, we have ways of asking questions that I will notice better. Keep your questions relevant. If this becomes an issue, if there's a lot of questions, again, I'll be doing kind of a question and answer period. And finally, I have the right to add any other rules as they come up. A big one that I remembered, well, just this afternoon, was as far as enrolled students go, please don't give out my personal information. Someone randomly coming in here wanting to join in the class doesn't necessarily know my email, and I want to keep it that way for now. I'm working on how to involve other people. For now, it's just you guys. So, I talked about the idea of a better way to ask me questions and reach out to me in chat, and the way to do that is to @ me. So you just want Chris Arndt instructor question, and for me that will pop up as a highlight. I'll be able to see my name highlighted nice and bold, so I'll be able to notice your question a bit easier. If I do miss a question and it's kind of made its way through the chat, hopefully I'll be able to go back and find it again. If not, it's cool to re-ask. Just don't go crazy with it. Moving on to file access, the idea of how you guys are going to get access to your files and what we're working with. Same as always. Hopefully one day it will change and I'll get you a better way to get files, and again, a way to get Randos files. In the meantime, it's on eLearn. Today, all the files, I'm going to pull it up now. All the files can be found. There we go. Under week of March 25th, creating graphics in eLearn. So that's under the weekly content main folder. You'll find it down there. And the link you want is graphics working files. There's only like 8 of them, and honestly we're only working with 3 technically today. But definitely useful to have, and some nice little files that you can play around with at a later date. Beyond that, I do have some other resources that you guys can make use of. We'll be talking about this in a moment, but I've given you access to some links to a typography guide, a color palette designer, and a hex code lookup, and I'll explain what all those mean, but it's basically tools that can help you build better graphics. Let me actually I just realized I don't have, there we go, eLearn. So again, it's under weekly content, week of March 25th, creating graphics, and then you want graphics working files. I do recommend, if you want to follow along today, that you start downloading those right now. But if you do want to just sit back and kind of see how this is done and then follow along with the tutorial I put out on Friday, that's cool too. As it says on my page somewhere, tutorials can be found at my new YouTube channel for all of this, which is the exact same name as my Twitch name, Chris Arndt Instructor. If you go to that channel, you'll currently find all the tutorials that already exist on eLearn for us, but you'll also see either copies of the stream or little excerpts that I've cut out to teach specific skills. So finally, I want to talk about why we're here. I've mentioned it more than enough in my emails that I've sent out. Things are kind of all going batshit crazy outside the front door kind of thing. We're here because of coronavirus, and well, really, I want to talk about it for a little bit. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please shout out in chat. I know it's been hard on myself and my family, as well as many of my friends. I can't imagine it's been easy on you guys with classes. I do hope you're all doing well. I hope your families are doing well. It's not an easy thing to deal with. It's I'm gonna get real for a minute before we start getting into class. It's weird to think that a month and a half ago I was talking to whether it was you guys or other students about these statistics for coronavirus and things changing and growing, and that this is what it's become. For myself, there's a retirement home about, God, literally 100 meters away from my townhouse complex, and a woman there just died from coronavirus, and a few others have it. It's definitely hard to think about sometimes. I don't recognize the username. As far as what the school is going to do for students, I'm honestly not too sure. I'm hoping at present there aren't many students who can't complete the school year as a result of it. And ultimately, outside of those whose cases become severe, the symptoms of this aren't necessarily much different from a common cold or common flu for your average person. I really hope that no one does develop severe symptoms or, God forbid, passes away from it. But I'm not sure what the school's protocol is for that. What I can say, what I do know, is that, bear with me, I had this somewhere. There we go. There we go. There is a website to go to. Currently, I'm going to move the website to the top. Currently, that website is more or less what I know about the situation. I get a little bit more insight behind the scenes because I am a teacher, but for the most part, we're not necessarily given much more information than you are in a lot of cases. With regard to the summer semester, I don't imagine the summer semester will be affected too much. I should give the caveat of, don't quote me on any of this. It's all speculative. But myself, having gone through the summer semester and winter intake, I suspect that a lot of, I know that a lot of the summer semester is designed, pardon the stutter, is designed to be able to be condensed. Think of it like how I got rid of one of your assignments to make things easier and make things lighter for you guys. Same idea. The summer semester is meant to condense the information so that you can all learn as much as you need to learn and as well as any other student would, but in less time, filling in less space than your average student. So the summer semester might be affected, but I suspect that as far as the timeline goes, things probably won't change. It'll mostly be on the teacher's end of things. Again, don't quote me on that. It's not an official statement from a Mohawk teacher. It's a hypothesis. So we can talk a bit more about this as things go on, but you are here for class, and so let's start talking about Adobe Premiere. So I'm going to switch to, I like this display. So today we're talking about graphics. We're talking about the idea of how to create graphics, how to adjust graphics, and kind of what the importance of graphics is. Ultimately, from my perspective, it seems pretty obvious why we need to understand graphics for this kind of thing. But when it comes down to it, graphics are all about condensing information, making a video product much easier to consume for the audience, telling a story quickly. Because at the end of the day, video's flashy, but doesn't necessarily contain all the information we need. Or it can take a real lot of work to make a video tell a story where a bit of writing would suffice in the first place. So when we talk about graphics, I want you to think of things like, I imagine most of you are familiar with the tasty videos that are on Facebook and I think Instagram we have a quick little meal whipped up, beautiful little top-down camera angle, and we just have the ingredients pop up in the top corner. Or think of a news summary where we have just a list of the key points going down the side of the screen while we have someone talking. Or, for example, an Instagram story. Instagram stories are designed to give a whole bunch of information real easily, and very often through text. Commercials do it all the time too. Especially medication, things like travel sites. They throw a lot of graphics up there to create intrigue, to make the story more consumable, without having to go ask for a Hollywood director to come up with the plot and design a basic commercial. So when we look at Premiere, we have a lot of tools built into the program that allow us to very quickly just whip up some graphics. These ones that I'm about to show you are examples of that, and I whipped them up literally like 3 or 4 hours before I started stream today. I had them planned out, but as far as creation, I just threw them together in 30 minutes. So I'm going to play this through. I have it muted, just because it's just traffic noise. But I'm just going to play these shots through. So, with this little video, we have established where we are. We've established what we're looking at. We've established kind of a news story. We've established what's going on. And we put all this information into 20 seconds of video. As opposed to having someone sit on camera and talk for 30 seconds explaining exactly this. We just create a couple of graphics to tell the story for us. So these graphics themselves are what we are going to create for those who have downloaded the files and are following along. We're going to be making these for the rest of stream, and maybe a bit more if we get done early. So the first step is going to be, obviously you have your files downloaded. And as my students, you should all know at this point to build a project folder within the main folder. Once you open up Premiere, you're going to, there we go, other screen. You're going to create a new project, which I'm doing right now. I'll call it graphics. You'll choose a location for it, in which case you're going to choose your project folder. Again, as per usual, you make sure your scratch disks are the same as your project, and hit OK. So, for my sake, I'm going to close down, actually I'll leave the panel there. You'll note that my media over here is empty. I haven't imported anything. So I'm going to double click on that, and select all my files, and import them. There's a little loading bar on my other screen, and there they are. So, for now, I'm going to go up to File, click on New, click on Sequence, and as per usual, we want the folder AVC HD 1080p, and then we choose the one that ends in 30. AVC HD 1080p 30. I'm going to leave that up on screen for a moment. And again, it's AVC HD 1080p, and then AVC HD 1080p 30. That's no problem, Thomas. Though I'm curious with regard to the Salt Lick files. I'll follow up with you after, or once we take a break. Yeah, feel free to sit the stream out, or feel free to put off working on Salt Lick for another probably hour and a half. Either way, you do you. So, we make our sequence. I'll call it sequence 1. Doesn't really matter. Nice blank screen, right? So what I'm going to do is open up, in my case, my Dr. Disk 1 file, and just play it through. And I'm going to hit L to fast forward it a little bit. So this shot is just a nice straight pan of the street over to this mural. You can also note in the second pan that that's me right in the middle of screen. Yes, Jesse, this stream will be available to rewatch, and then I'll take an excerpt of it and use it for a tutorial video on the YouTube channel. Yeah, understandably, streams are not the easiest thing on your internet connection. So yeah, feel free to check it out afterward. No worries. So getting back to this, what I'm going to do is take probably this third pass where we have this truck approaching. Just because it's a nice smooth shot, I'm not particularly prominent in it, and following along with these cars always looks nice. So I'll take from probably about here. I will mark my in with I and move over. You want to leave it on the mural for a little bit, so wait till this man has passed by and mark with an O for out. I then click and drag on the picture right down to my timeline. Pretty straightforward. We already know how to cut a basic video. At least anyone who will be handing in Salt Lick at the end of the week should certainly know how to do this. So I'm going to real quick just cut this second shot. This is me working with my stabilizer. And we just want a nice shot that, yeah, just turns smoothly near that end bit. And again, we just want the third pass. So I'm going to mark an out and an in just before I start walking. I'll click and drag that in as well. And there's our basic sequence. It's really nothing fantastic, but it will get the job done. One thing worth noting is that the first shot I grabbed is particularly dark, and once I teach you color correction, we'll be able to adjust that. For now, we just make do with what we have. So, going from that, pardon me, we now have to start building in these graphics. The easiest way to build a graphic in Premiere, super straightforward, is the text tool. That is where all your tools are here on this little toolbar in the middle. We just click the T. Sorry, it's a type tool. And with that selected, rather than clicking down in the timeline, we click directly on our image. And it may be hard to see on stream, but I have this little red box here now that indicates I'm good to type. So I'm going to type Dr. Disc. Super straightforward. The thing to note is that now if I want to adjust that, I have to move to my normal selection tool. And it's surrounded by blue. Now, there's all sorts of things we can do with this bit of text. And the way we unlock all those editing abilities is we go up to Window in the top corner. Then we scroll down and click Essential Graphics. Now, you'll note that my entire side of my screen just filled up. I'm going to move my big head out of the way. We won't need this bottom corner for the next little while. So, just adjusting so everything's nice and visible. Opening up Essential Graphics, we're given two main tabs that we can work with. We're given the Browse tab, where we're able to drag in pre-existing templates and presets for graphics. There's a lot of these already built into Premiere that you can make use of. A lot of them are kind of... Oh, I'm touching my face. A lot of them are kind of dorky, a bit corny, a bit old-fashioned, but some of them are actually quite useful. In our case, you'll note that when I created this text, I got this little box down on the main timeline. It's called Dr. Disc. That box indicates our graphic. It's just a graphic layer. So with that selected, we can click on Edit, and we're suddenly given a lot of different controls to adjust our text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on Dr. Disk on the screen to highlight it in red, and then adjust a few things. First of all, I want the text to be a fair bit bigger, so I can either drag this slider down here, or I can type in a number. I'll go for 200. Nice and even, nice and round. I'm also not a big fan of the font here. So I already have some pre-existing fonts that I use. There's a whole list of stuff that you guys have access to. In my case though, I want to go with Montserrat. It's just a nice clean sans serif font. And when I say sans serif, that refers to the idea that my fonts don't have little tails, like Times New Roman or like the one I was just using, Minion. There are no tails on it. It feels very clean. It feels very simple. Once I've selected my font, I can also choose things like font styles. So in this case, I'm going to go for bold. I like extra bold. I can adjust all sorts of other things. I can up in the align and transform settings here. I can center my text both horizontally and vertically. Below that, I can adjust my height or general location, my XY coordinates. We can adjust opacity with that slider at the bottom. There's all sorts of different things we can do here. Fill, for example, if we want to change its color, we can do that. The world's kind of your oyster with the Essential Graphics tool. There's a lot we can do. So I'm going to leave Dr. Disk pretty straightforward here. Mick, I will... Let me see if we even have Comic Sans. Okay, we do have Comic Sans. I'll use it on the next shot. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to use normal. Then we'll flip over to Comic Sans. So you'll notice that, yes, we have a layer down in our main timeline. It shows up pink, nice and pink, very obvious, very clear. If we wanted to add more text to this graphic, we don't necessarily have to build another layer. We can work in the layer that we're in, and in Essential Graphics, click this little page here, under where it says Dr. Disk here. If we click on that, we can build a few different things. Text, vertical text, rectangles, ellipse. We can import graphics from a file. In this case, I'm going to put more text. And you'll note that it, aside from choosing to remain red, it keeps all the same settings we used for the last piece of text, which is actually great for us because I'm only going to adjust a few things on here. First, I'm going to go to my selection tool, just so I can drag it to a location I prefer. I'll double click it, and I'm going to adjust a few things. I'm going to change its size to, let's say, 100 again. Rather than extra bold, let's go with light. Let's change the fill back to white. And while it's highlighted, we can still type. I'm going to type in 20 Wilson Street, Hamilton, Ontario. So, one big thing here, actually hold on one second, I'm going to take a sip of water. One big thing here you'll notice here is that as far as our graphic goes, I'm going to center it, our address line is way wider than our title line. And there's a few things we can do to adjust this because I want them to be pretty rectangular for this shot. Again, if you refer back to the sample, well, it is a bit wider. Things fit nice and concisely in one little spot. So going back to our sequence, what I'm going to do is double click or Command A to highlight all of my text and adjust my setting here, which should be that's my tracking. Tracking refers to the distance between any specific letter. So you'll note that the font isn't changing size at all, it's just not so spaced out. So I'm going to reduce that on my subtitle line, or my address line. And in the case of my upper title line, I can just double click on that too, because we're all in the same one layer. I'm going to adjust a couple of things. So first I'm going to double click on, or single click on this double capital T button down here, which is all caps. I prefer all caps for this. And I'm going to increase my kerning on this one. Not a ton, maybe up to 50. So now when we center this one and center this one, they're pretty similar in size. I'm also going to increase the font on Dr. Disk up to 225. Center it again. And let's adjust the Y coordinate so it's down a little bit. Now they're practically the same size. They fit nicely into kind of a box. So on the subject of building a box, let's do exactly that. If I click on that new layer button again, I can select the rectangle instead. And as long as I'm on my selection tool, I can move that wherever I want and adjust it in a whole bunch of different ways. So I can click any of these blue dots to adjust its size. And anyone who's ever played with Photoshop, or even kind of gotten in depth with Premiere, is able to tell you that whatever is the topmost layer, so shape 1 up here, always appears on top. So I can click and drag that below Dr. Disk, and it appears behind. Let's give it a little bit more breathing room on the sides. And that's not terrible. I don't necessarily love the color, the size, all that, but we can work with this. So suddenly, we have a usable graphic. We have a little title card. There are things we can improve here, but that's the basics of it. So the first thing I'm going to do to improve this is, while my shape 1 is selected, I'm going to reduce its opacity, this slider here. I'll reduce that to about 90. Hell, I'll reduce it to 85, just so we can see the background through it very slightly. I'm going to click on the fill. Funny enough, the fill is actually the color I originally planned for this, but let's go a bit darker. I feel like it's too bright. So we could simply select a color on the slider here, adjusting our hue, our saturation, our brightness. Or we can use what's called a hex code. And a hex code is a computer code that's used to define a specific color. So for example, if I go down here, if I go down to this little input box and type 000, or type 0 6 times, I get black. 000 or hextuple 0 is always black on any computer anywhere. And in a similar fashion, 6Fs is always white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for AB, AB, AP. I'm digging that. That's a nice light gray, not quite the same hue that we were working with. Gives us a bit more of a red hue, which I kind of like for this shot. You'll note that one of the resources I gave you on eLearn is a hex code finder. So if you like the color chartreuse, you can type in chartreuse and be given a hex code for it. Similar, well, any other color you wanted. There's all sorts of ways we define colors, and the tool I gave you allows for most of those. So we've changed the color on this. We've changed the opacity a bit. All in all, I'm liking this kind of layout. One thing I do want to do that I did in my first example is I want to add some underline. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of being able to, like in Microsoft Word, click an underline button. So instead, we build another rectangle. And with the selection tool highlighted, I'll make the rectangle as long as I want it to be. I'll change the color so I can actually see it on top of my main box. And then I'll adjust the thickness to whatever I want it to be. So for Dr. Disc, I'm going to make it fairly thick so it doesn't stand out too much. I'm going to drag down my Wilson Street line and do the exact same thing. I'll build one more shape, a rectangle. It's already white. I'll make it as long as I need it to be and as thin as I need it to be. And that's a bit thicker than I want. So what I can do is where it says fit here, I can zoom into, let's say 100%, get a better view of what that underline looks like. And rather than try to drag it, I can just adjust the Y coordinate to bring it up and then make sure it's centered horizontally. And if I set that 100% back to fit and deselect, there we go. So the big thing you'll notice between this and the sample I showed at the beginning of this is that they're completely different locations. They look a tad different anyways, but one thing we have to keep in mind is that while we can make all sorts of adjustments in Essential Graphics, at the end of the day, with our layer selected, we can still go into Effect Controls and adjust things too. So if I'm in Effect Controls, I affect everything that's in this layer. If I want to make it bigger, smaller, I can adjust the scale. If I want to adjust the location of everything, I can, which I'm going to do. If I wanted to give everything a slightly lower opacity so that we could see through the words too, I can change mine to 95. And it's barely apparent, but it does make a difference at the end of the day. And suddenly, this is looking, again, aside from that color, very similar to the other shot. Now, ultimately the goal with this is to still show off that mural, to show off the building. So once our shot moves onto it, we don't necessarily want it to be there. But we also don't want this. To have a graphic just kind of disappear very often looks weird. The same way with some cuts between videos can look really weird. We want to kind of smooth it out. And we'll do it the same way, at least for now, stand by till next week. We'll do it the same way that we do transition shots. So we'll go into Video Transitions, Dissolve, and drag across Dissolve just onto the end of that shot. And now, it has a nice fade out rather than a sudden disappearance. So now comes the time where I have to use Comic Sans. So I'm going to use the text tool again. And first I'm going to type my copy just so that I can see what's going on here. So our first bit of copy is Mark Furukawa, the owner of Dr. Disc, announced the store's closure on March 23rd due to COVID-19. This. Mark. Oh. So you'll notice, one sec, let me finish typing. You'll notice that our text block immediately just ran off the side of the page. It didn't jump down like a Word document would. That's because there's a lot of reasons we don't want it to suddenly jump down. We prefer to have that control ourselves. So before I go any further, I have it all selected. Let's go comic. I'll go regular. God, I hate this font. So we have to return our text ourselves. And that's as easy as we hit enter when we want it to drop. Stores closure on March 23rd due to COVID-19. So you'll note that our text being white like this, our text being white on this shot sucks. We can't see half of our text. The contrast is too high, and this is very often a problem with graphics. So what we have to do is we have to build a box beneath it to give us some contrast for our text. So again, I went up to that new layer button, chose rectangle. I'm just going to stretch that over the text and then move that layer below our text. That said, our text is still white on white, so let's change that color. The Comic Sans is a crowd favorite. I was more of a Papyrus guy, if I'm being honest. That said, I do highly recommend looking up the font Comic New, which is a better version of Comic Sans. Currently our text is white on white, and rather than choose a hex code to pull out the color we want, I'm going to grab this eyedropper tool instead. There's all sorts of cool colors going on our shot, so why not make use of some of them? Bear with me on this. Sometimes the eyedropper tool is not the easiest to work with. Sometimes it grabs weird things. Yeah, for now, I saw blue pop up somewhere. There. I think it's weird reading the wrong part of the screen. Either way, this blue pops real nice. Let's once again give it some opacity reduction. So I'm going to go 85. I actually like 90. Ah, there we go, okay. I think I see the problem here. Let me go to this shot. It just doesn't want to play well right now. Either way, I like that light blue better anyway. And let's change the color of our font as well. So pink. There we go, pink on blue. Gross pastel baby colors in Comic Sans. It's really kind of the worst case scenario as far as graphic design goes, but I'll put up with it for you guys. I'm also going to add a stroke to this box, just because I feel like it's missing something. So I'm going to click that little check mark. I've already got a nice color in there. So now let's see what we can kind of do with this to make it fit in the screen better. Because if I play through right now, it just kind of fills up the middle of the screen. So I'm going to go to that layer, go into Effect Controls, and just move it closer to the top. There we go. Another way we can do this, I'll back up on that, is in Essential Graphics with our shape highlighted. I can make sure that it aligns to the top of my screen and to the far right. And then I'll just adjust things slightly so it's moved a little bit off. And I can do the same with my text. Up, right, adjust until it fits. We live for Comic Sans, but I am baby. Comic Sans is baby. Well, honestly, I have missed you guys easily as much as you have missed me. I live for this kind of thing. Not the Comic Sans, just the teaching part. But moving on. Let's add another block. So, now that our playhead is at the end of this clip, let's use the text tool, throw a new clip in. Someone is moving furniture upstairs. And let's go back to the other sequence to see what our copy is. Let's see. He explained that the store and its entire staff will be back once things clear up. I was referencing an Instagram. I was referencing an Instagram post that Dr. Disc put out a couple of days ago. It was quite sad to read, but at the end of the day, you know, they're doing the right thing. Closing down. And I completely forgot what my copy is. He explained that the store and its entire staff will be back once things clear up. Comic Sans explained that the store and its entire will be back once things clear up, period. So let's go for a bit of a longer graphic here rather than a nice square. We'll be back once things clear up. That's pretty good. In fact, I'm even going to increase our... Let's reduce that to 10. There. Ooh. Minus 10. The idea of changing up the shape of our graphics just adds more interest and intrigue. It keeps the eyes busy while we're viewing. That said, we don't want all our graphics to be super weird and deviate from each other too much, or else they won't feel like they're fitting in with each other. So let's build another square. Already has the settings that we want. Let's stretch it over the text. Throw the layer down, and then let's adjust locations. So in this case, we're going to align to the bottom and to the left, and then just move things over a bit so they're not quite touching the edge of the screen. And rather than adjust all those settings here, we'll just click and drag this until it fits in nicely. I'd say that's pretty good. What we can also do while this is highlighted with blue is we can also... Pardon me. We can't adjust it with the arrow keys like I'm used to on my other programs. That was my fault. What we can do, that I haven't shown you yet, is it's worth noting that each of these text layers, I'll put them on the same track, are adjustable just like any video clip is. What's nice about graphics is they're adjustable indefinitely. If I wanted that to be a 1.5 minute graphic, I can make it a 1.5 minute graphic. So let's transition this shot. If we look to the original shot, we'll see that the first block fades in, then fades out, then the second fades in, and eventually fades back out. So let's create just that. Pardon me. So we start by just dragging on some cross dissolves. We can add those to the beginning and ends of our clip. So there's actually two ways we can build this. We can either have it like we just saw, fade out and then the next one fade in, or we can cross dissolve right over the two. I don't recommend this because there will be a point where they're both on screen together and it will look terrible. I'll be showing you next week some other, honestly, way cooler tools for adjusting these kinds of things that they're not as easy to use as a simple drag in effect, but they're way prettier. They just look better, they look cleaner. But for the time being, let's adjust some things. So I'm going to zoom in to the point where these two clips meet. I'm going to use my red adjustment arrow and drag it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames over. You can see right near the clips that minus 00000005. That's 5 frames I'm dragging. And I'll do the same the other direction. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Missed one. 5. So that gives us a bit of space between our clips, and then, like the others, we just drag in the cross dissolves. So when we have it play, our ugly baby graphics show up beautifully. So I'm going to finish off with a quote from Mr. Furukawa, which is directly from that Instagram post. Quote, "See you when the lights are turned back on again." Now, there. Rather than recreate all of this all over again, we can also select our graphic, copy it, and then just somewhere where our video isn't, I'll paste it in and drag it up. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can't tell if that was 10 or 11. You would think I'd know how to count at this point. So that's been copied, pasted, dragged. Now we have that exact same shot coming up again. But we can, through Essential Graphics, adjust literally everything in there. So in this case, the quote was, going back to it, "See you when the lights are turned back on again. Mark Furukawa." See you when the lights are turned back on again. End quote. And then let's hit enter there. No, let's cut it at R. Mark Furukawa. So just because certain sections of text have different looks doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be in their own layer. For example, if I wanted, let's say I want the quote to be bold, I can just highlight that and then adjust it to Comic Sans bold. If I want just his name to be italic, I can make it Comic Sans italic. I could also change fonts. I can change all sorts of other things. The only problem with that is it can be hard to keep track of if you have 6 different kinds of changes in each individual layer. really depends what you're doing with it. One thing I will do is center all of this, and I'll center the box as well. And let's just give the box a little bit more breathing room. There we go. So in our shot, the only other thing to note is that in the case of this shot, we also want our, well, first of all, we want our video clip to dip to black. And then rather than a cross dissolve at the end of this clip, let's shorten it a little and also add a dip to black. And what we can do, we can't really hear it in this case, but we could extend our audio, and then using the P button, I move to the pen tool, and we can just keyframe the audio down. A nice little fade out, just like you would do in Adobe Audition. In this case, the audio is not super important, but let's play through what we've made. In fact, oh yeah, the audio is there. I unmuted it at some point. One big thing to note with your graphics is that they need to be on screen long enough to read. In news, the rule is that if a word is on screen, you need to be able to read it 2 or 3 times. I forget what Dave says. You need to be able to read it a couple of times before it disappears. The same goes for graphics in kind of any video, but there's liberties that can be taken. You have to note that that rule came from a man who doesn't want a clip that's shorter than 3 seconds, but I just cut a promo video of clips that are 1.5 seconds long. So there's room to break the rules. Just be smart about it. So compared to our initial shot, played back to back, they're practically no different. It's almost like I made both of them. So feel free to make this video, to play around with it, really get creative with graphics. There's a lot you can do. In fact, next week, or maybe definitely by next week, I'll have an example, probably like a smash cut of just different awesome graphic techniques, just as inspiration, just to show you what you can do with this. To give you a rough idea, there's all sorts of graphic transitions that we can use. I'll browse just from a few of these I've created. A few of them I've downloaded online for free. Let's go with you. Oh. I think that setting. Give it a second. I'm going to let that do its thing for a moment. There we go. So the cool thing with presets is that they let you do a lot of really cool things. Like this I've dragged in on... I just realized there. I have to layer it over top. But this setting here, if I go into Essential Graphics, the only things I can edit are the colors of the rings. But that alone... Yeah, for some reason it really doesn't like me. The eyedropper tool doesn't really like me right now. But it takes some colors inspired by that mural. I'll go with kind of a hot pink. And go for a secondary color. Nice like vivid blue. And then reverse them because I prefer the hot pink on the inner ring. It's vivid blue. There we go. Now if I clear my in and out, and just quick render that, we should get a nice transition between those two shots now. There we go. Those transitions, albeit that's a preset that I've dragged in, you can build those on Premiere. There are other programs you can use too. I use After Effects a lot. But there's all sorts of different graphics you can use. And you're going to be. I think this is as good a time as ever to talk about the upcoming assignment. I've got pretty much everything formalized on eLearn. Let me drag it over. Bear with me for a moment. So the assignment as it stands on eLearn is I'm making you cut together a video that I shot for Mohawk's marketing department. So essentially, there we go. I'm giving you a full script that shows all the video you need, the music, the edits. I'm giving you all the video clips you need, and in fact a little animation that I created, some fireworks. The only other thing you need to source, rather than making you guys do a voiceover or an on-camera or any of that, mostly because the equipment room's shut down, all you need to do is find some royalty-free music and throw it over the video that you cut. But essentially the video you're cutting is, yeah, I can show it because it is in fact my video. There it is. Let me kill my music. Do-do-do. Oh. So I'm not expecting you to do quite the same level of graphics or those transitions or anything like that. Everything will be clearly outlined in a script, but I'm just making you throw essentially graphics over silent shots to create a story. You still have to be able to cut together the shots, make it nice and clean, give me a presentable video along with your graphics. But altogether, graphics are going to be the big challenge of this video. Because aside from that, it's make sure the music is decent and sounds okay, and make sure the video is color corrected slightly, which is not a huge feat, I assure you. So this is essentially what you're cutting together. The files are all loaded. I just need to double check the script one more time before I make it available to you guys. But this will be due, I forget what day, the last Wednesday that we spend together. Yeah, just that easy. You'll also be throwing this video in, but I've already pre-built it. So, killing that. The only thing you won't be given that you need to make use of is your royalty-free music, as far as the assignment's concerned. The rubric's there, everything will be in its usual places on eLearn. Closing that down. I'm going to take a little break from Premiere for a minute. How's everyone doing? I'm not sure who all is in chat at this point. It looked like Thomas had to take off. Who do I got? Quite a few people. We got 4 or 5 in chat. How's it going? How's everyone dealing with coronavirus and social distancing and staying at home? Who else had to work until recently? Because I know a few of my friends were doing retail and only just got told to go home. Meg, where do you work again that you would still have to work? I assume food? Oh, let me turn that music back on. Rather than you guys hearing my fans. Ah, Wendy's, yeah. Mick, what about you? You have to work? Yeah, I'm lucky enough that I got to, well, that this is my work. I had some time off to get my head on straight, and then everything else I can work from home. I can work on Premiere. I can stream for you guys. And then I take a daily walk every day just to get some fresh air. But have any of you actually had interactions with anyone like with Corona, or know anyone directly impacted? One of the teachers I worked with, one of her grandmothers in Italy passed away. Oh geez. Well, that's, at least you got a little bit. At least you get a bit of time off. Hopefully it's only a bit. But how about Trump? Hoping that it'll be over by Easter. Also, happy birthday. Okay, this 2 headphone setup. Oh, it's killing me. There we go. Sorry if I get loud or anything. I can't hear my own voice now. Currently, my setup is such that my mic goes into one set of headphones and my computer goes into another set of headphones. Yeah, we have a few people. I'm not sure. I don't know if you'd have been in, Mick, by the time I said this, but about 100 meters away from my house is a old folks' home, and a woman there just passed away from it. She was in her 80s, so, but still. So, of whoever might still be in chat, who wants to continue with a bit of graphics? I don't have much more planned, but we can just kind of go on the fly, throw on some of those clips I gave you guys. Tried to set up your Wii. Pardon me, just checking an email. Hey, the Wii is great, but I have everyone around me talking about the Switch and Animal Crossing and all of this, and then you drop just that bomb. Yeah, no, the Wii's great. The Wii was ahead of its time. Don't get me started on the Wii U though. Yeah, let me get up Premiere. We'll do some graphics. I'll talk about it a bit, but I'll monitor chat a bit more. We can just kind of hang and talk editing. So the next shots I'm going to pull in are my alley shots. Anyone who's not been to this alley in Hamilton is, well, pardon me. Don't go to this alley in Hamilton right now, because you shouldn't be hanging out downtown anyway. When everything's passed, this alley in Hamilton is super cool. It's right next to the CBC building. I go there, I just kind of take walks through there every once in a while, just to see the new graffiti. Also, yes, Mick, I wish I had a Switch so I could get Animal Crossing. Last time I played it on, I forget, it would have been Wild World on the Nintendo DS. Okay. Just marking some ins and outs here. There we go, some nice color in that one. Shot number 2. Okay, that's my stabilizer shot. Let's mark it in. Marking out. That's 27 seconds. Meg, have you ever played Harvest Moon? Or Stardew Valley, for that matter? If you have, it's kind of like that, but minus the farming. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just fun. It's fun and relaxing. Unless you're like everyone nowadays chasing... Yeah, okay. It's a video game. A very good video game. Okay. So pay attention for a moment. If I haven't already shown this in class, I will again at some point. But so I have this shot here of myself walking down this alleyway, looking at all the graffiti on the way, right? But the shot is 27 seconds. It's super slow. I'd much rather go at the pace that I'm scrubbing. So what I'm going to do is right-click on that shot, click speed and duration, and I want this 27-second shot to last 5 instead, 5.0. So suddenly it cuts down my video to 5 seconds and moves nice and quick, the exact pace that I want to go with. The same can be done for slowing things down, but you need to have shot a video that's meant to be slowed down, something at 60 frames a second or higher. But yeah, that's how you increase or decrease the speed of a clip. Now we can go back to talking about Animal Crossing, or hell, whatever. At this point, it's pretty much just chilling and cutting. I've done the formal tutorial part of the video so far. So I'm done walking down this alleyway, turn out to the opening. I like that reveal. So we'll mark it in there, and then out there. Again, that's 10 seconds, so I'll probably double the speed on it. Oh, my apologies. I completely forgot to change back to my display. I'll quick play through what I just cut. So I just cut a bit of graffiti. But yeah, this alleyway is downtown Hamilton, right next to the CBC building. So I'll quick go over that, editing the speed of a clip again with this third clip I have in here, because it's very slow, right? And it's slow because I wanted to be careful about making sure the shot was stable. But I want to speed it up a bit. So currently, if I right click on it and click speed and duration, I'm given these settings. I can either adjust my speed or my duration. So this 10-second shot I could turn into a 2-second shot if I wanted. Instead, I'm going to adjust the speed in this case and go 300%. So 3 times faster than normal. So we get that shot walking down the alley, which I could probably cut down a little bit. I hate that loop. There. Shot walking down the alley. I looked away for a second. And then we come to that turn around the corner and the reveal, which I dig. Let's trim the shot of the alley right about here. And you know what? I think for next week I'm going to give you guys this transition package. Because I really like most of these transitions. And it saves you a lot of time editing. Because right now, I'm actually going to drag a transition in here that I want to use. There we go. I want it so that... There we go. That actually worked perfectly. And as far as colors, we take a nice green, like that graffiti right there. I'll go green and yellow, so we'll go yellow for the outside. And then that green for the inside. There we go, got this lime green thing going on. I don't love it, but I'll take it. So we got a reveal there. And that shot's whatever. Open up alley 3. This is my friend Brianna playing with the stabilizer. If I recall, she did one really nice move. Yeah, right here. Just kind of reveal, or this back out to nice bright colors. So again, I'm going to adjust the speed by right-clicking speed/duration, and then we'll adjust it to a 4-second clip. I call that nice. So for those who are still in and watching this, I'm going to give you a quick little sample of how to color grade or color correct. There's not a ton I can do here, but call it thanks for sticking around for an hour and a half. And also, it's killing me that I can't color correct videos because you guys don't know how yet, so I might as well show you how. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this Essential Graphics panel. And then instead I'm going to go up to Window and Lumetri Color. So there's a whole bunch to unpack with color correction. There's a whole lot of things we can do to change the colors, to brighten the colors, to change the exposure of videos. Right now I'm just going to do basic exposure correction because this shot, the green, lime green letters, is too bright. It's too... We lose a lot of the detail because our eyes are drawn to this bright light yellow. And so I'm going to fix that. So with that shot selected in our timeline, I'm going to adjust some of these settings under basic correction. Namely, if I drag exposure, you'll see everything gets a tad darker. And that's great, except everything starts to get kind of muddy and dark. So rather than adjusting our overall exposure, what I'm going to do is adjust our highlights, so the brightest points of our video. There we go. To give you an idea of the difference, before, after. It's not the hugest, it's not the biggest difference in the world, but it's enough that it creates depth in our video. Same with, I could adjust contrast. I could go low contrast, or I could really punch it up. I'm going to punch it up. Adjust our whites a little bit. And then our saturation down at the bottom. I never go too crazy with the saturation setting, but I'll set it to 110. Finally, we have our temperature settings up top. Normally you would adjust these first, but this was already pretty correct. This is just to make sure that your whites are white. It's literally the temperature you shoot at, because different lights out there are different shades of any combination of blue and orange or green and purple. Think of, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but they make glasses to filter out blue light, the light from screens, because blue light can hurt your eyes. Or if you set your phone to eye friendly or nighttime or whatever, it'll change to an orange light instead, to keep you from getting headaches. When we talk about blue and orange light, that's what we're adjusting for with color temperature. And trust me, when we talk about color correction in our actual class on color correction, I'll have way more to say. If you want to pick my brain about color correction, I have a ton to say, because one of my goals is to eventually work as a colorist, which is someone who is paid specifically just to adjust color, color grade, color correct. It's something that I'm really passionate about, so feel free to pick my brain about it. Or if you have any questions right now, feel free to shout them out in chat. Yes, I know. I'm not sure what you know, Mick, or what you're referring to. So I'm going to move on to our next shot. I'm going to color grade this a little bit. Because our first shot is so bright and vivid, I want our next shot to flow well from that. You'll note that it's not particularly bright because it's an alleyway. It makes sense. So I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. I never go too crazy with exposure if I don't have to. So it's literally set to 0.4. But even that is a fair bit brighter, particularly in those low, dark, muddy places. It's already a fair bit brighter with that setting changed. Now let's increase the contrast to pull out more from the wall here. And let's bring up our highlights. It brings our sky in the background a little bit more blown out, but it brings out a lot on the wall, which is what we really care about. Same with if we bring down our shadows. We detract a little bit in the mud here. The mud gets a fair bit darker, which is good. It draws our eye away from it. But suddenly everything on this wall really pops. See the difference? Or even this blue one. That's without these settings. That's with the settings. It really blows it up in a good way. So again, for those who missed the instruction, I went to Window and clicked on Lumetri Color. That gives us all our main color correction settings. And just under this basic correction tab, I've just been adjusting settings here. That's really all you need to do to start. Then we have our transition, and this shot again kind of muddy, kind of brown. Like the wall is brown, but let's see if we can adjust that. First thing I'm going to do, adjusting the wrong shot. First thing I'm going to do is make our white balance, or our color temperature, a tad bit more blue. I'll give it -25. That immediately pulls some of the yellow out of the shot. You'll know, especially in the sky and the snow, things feel and look a bit more real. Now, let's play the clip just so we can see the main focus of the shot. I'm just going to bring up the exposure a tad. Let's add some contrast in here. The graffiti really likes the contrast. Highlights we don't really need to play with too much, because I worry we'll blow out the snow on the ground. I can throw some shadow in by dragging the shadows down, as in making them darker. I'll leave the whites. I could adjust them slightly, but I'll leave them. And let's pull the black down to -10, just so that that car is a bit darker. Some of the blues in here are a bit darker. And I'll bring the saturation up to 110 again. And then finally our last shot. And one cool thing about Lumetri Color is that it's an effect, just like anything else. So if I click on this clip that I just adjusted, you see Lumetri Color in here. The really cool thing about that is that if I right click on that clip, I can copy the clip, right click on my second clip, and paste attributes, and just apply the Lumetri Color effect. And already our shot's more vibrant. It's a little bit too saturated, but that's not a bad adjustment right there. All I have to do now is click on it. I'll bring my saturation back down to 100. Bring my shadows up slightly. Let's bring the contrast down a little bit. I think I'm going to adjust the orange out of the shot a little bit more. And bring up the saturation to 110 as well. When I say the shot, I mean the second shot I added. So this is... if I mark in, mark out, and then render into out. Bear with me for a moment. Let that render, and here we go. We have these nice, vibrant, colorful shots, albeit the graffiti really lends to the color. So, with something like this, there's a lot of room. I'll quickly touch on the graphics, because that is technically what this class is about. There's a lot of room for graphics we can throw in. These shots are all pretty consistent, they're all pretty clean. There's all sorts of information we can pull out of this. We could talk about how hidden in the heart of downtown Hamilton is a street art mecca, or we could, if we actually knew, we could credit each one of the artists here, just with their own graphic. There's all sorts of transitions we can create, we can throw in, we can animate. At the end of the day, all we're trying to do is turn this from a neat looking little video into more of a story. So I'm going to leave it at that for the editing. The only other thing I want to talk about, bear with me for a sec, switch back. The only other thing I want to talk about is going forward. What what's coming up next week, what's coming up in the next few weeks. So first of all, I've talked about this before. Sorry, the music is a bit loud in my headphones. Let me just adjust them. There we go. So, like I said before, the final assignment for as far as audio video editing goes, that final assignment is due our final Wednesday together. All the information for the assignment and files and everything else required will be available by tonight, by the end of day today. I just have to review a few more things. As far as class next week goes, we're going to continue talking about graphics a little bit, particularly about the idea of animating them, as well as pulling in external graphics like editing photos into a video, which is not necessarily my favorite technique, but it teaches you the basics. We'll even learn how to apply the technique that's most commonly called Ken Burnsing, to Ken Burns a photo. And we'll talk about why it's called that. So yeah, next week we'll do some more graphics, a bit more color correction, well, formal color correction, and really getting started on the idea of animating or keyframing graphics or even our video clips and effects. So with that, I defer to you guys or whoever might be watching, listening at this point. Do you have any other questions? Is there anything else you want to know before we call an end to this this stream? Also, I'd love to know your opinion of how this went or if I could do anything better. I've got some new tech coming in so I can get a better webcam. But beyond that, I relish the idea of what I can do to improve this. So I don't know who's still with me. I see 5 names in my chat thing, but you never know if that's quite accurate. Okay, I'm giving it one more minute. If no one jumps into chat with questions and or comments, I'm going to kill the stream. Okay, so as far as you go, Mick, is your struggle to access Adobe due to the lack of computer and stuff on your end, or is it you need a license for Adobe? Because if so, I have a whole bunch of information I can send you from Dave. As far as I think it's gels, it's hard to see my computer; it's a little ways away. I'm glad you tuned in because I saw your name pretty early on. I'm glad you stuck through. Is there anything in particular that you enjoyed that struck your interest? Do you want to learn to edit video? There. No problem with the Comic Sans, Mick. But yeah, as far as questions with Adobe, and getting you on that and actually editing, feel free to email me. I can forward you some resources. Oh, okay, yeah, lack of computer. Oh, okay, Gels, you're friends with Jesse. Okay. I'm glad you're interested in taking the class. I highly recommend not only my class, but the journalism program in general. Mick, as far as the lack of computer goes, still email me just so I don't forget that this is a problem for you. I'll talk to Dave and see what we can sort out. Yeah, I'm glad you guys stuck through. And I'm glad I managed to go an hour and 48. There's always the worry that things will run too short or things are going to run way too long. Mind you, that comes with any class I teach. But yeah, as far as the video goes, this will be on the YouTube channel on Friday. It should show up on Twitch pretty soon after I'm done, and I'll be back with another stream on Wednesday. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, guys. Stay safe, stay informed, wash your goddamn hands, you filthy animals. And I'll hopefully catch you next Wednesday. And again, if you have questions, those of you who have my email, feel free to email me. Have a good one.
Can't see through your skin.